Welcome to Butterflies of Wisdom, everyone. And this morning, I have second-time guest Madeleine Davis with me. The reason why I brought her on for a second time is because she has an amazing program that helps teachers and parents, more primarily parents, get organized enough so they can help their teachers. So that, for those of you that don't know, I taught preschool for 11 years. I wish I had my parents learn this program that Madeleine created, because that would have helped me in my daily life of teaching kids. And so without further ado, I'm going to let Madeleine take it away.
Hi, Wynn. Thank you so much for that introduction. As Wynn said, my name is Madeleine Davis, and I am the founder of the Parenting System and the Parenting CEO and the creator of the Stress-Free Family System. And really my purpose in creating the system was to find a solution for the chaos that was going on in my own home. And when I was able to calm that chaos in my own home and other parents began to notice what I was doing, they started to ask me to teach them so that they could do it too. And that's really the evolution of the stress-free family. And a side benefit is something that you noticed and that you're very interested in, Wynn, is that although my program is really directed and targeted towards families, it is the stress-free family system, and creating that relaxed, peaceful, organized, well-functioning home environment, it does translate into peaceful, relaxed, calm, organized existence for the children at school, which of course benefits the children and the teachers. So that's kind of a secondary benefit of the program.
Yeah.
But I do find that a lot of teachers are very interested in the program and having, their parents learn about it because of the effect that it has on the child as a student. Because that's really their job, right? The student's job, a child's job is to be a student, right? And it's so hard for them to be able to perform well in school when they're not, set up for success at home. So
I definitely agree. And as I said to you last time, if the child walks in 20 minutes late, that throws off every single child in the line. Everything.
Yes. Everything. And it throws off the other children in the classroom as well. But it's really it's like a domino effect. If you start off, badly in the morning, and then the kid gets to school late, and then they already are flustered and they're stressed out, and maybe they forgot their homework at home because they were running out the door, and maybe they haven't eaten a great breakfast. So, and they're just kind of, escalating throughout the whole day. Instead of focusing 150% on their studies and what's happening in front of them, they're really focused on what happened at home in the morning maybe, or what they've forgotten. So it's really great to just have it handled at home and then be able to go to school really with a great attitude and really set up to be able to perform at school. So my program is the Stress-Free Family System, and you had asked me to talk about how it's structured and the foundation of it. And it's really important for moms and for families to know that it's very hard to be successful in your home if you're not looking at the home holistically. And that's what I found in my own home, that I was trying to kind of attack each of these parts of my family and my home that were kind of falling apart. And I was trying to attack them on their own, like as if each one was an island. So I was trying to download a routines checklist from the internet, because I knew on some level that my kids' routines were not on point. And I would download that and I would try to fill that out. And of course that never works because if those downloadable worksheets work, then everybody would have great routines. But, I tried to just isolate that one area. And of course I didn't know how to train my children to do routines. I didn't know how to teach them to be consistent with their routines, and that fell apart. And then I would decide, well, you know what my house needs is rules, and then I would try to figure out rules, and I wasn't consistent with those either, and they weren't rules that really kind of made sense, or I would make them up as I went along, kind of what I call winging it. I say we kind of like, when we need a rule, we just make one up, and then I would try to, figure out a way to reward them for their behavior, and that usually ended up with some type of bribery. Like if you do this, I'm going to do
let's
that.
be honest here. Let's be honest.
Right. Who hasn't done that, right? So, we're really in that kind of almost desperate stage where we're flying by the seat of their pants. We need to, we need an outcome. So you need to get the kids to school and you're trying to figure out how you're going to do that on the fly, and that doesn't ever really work out. So when you're just trying to put one foot in front of the other and you don't really have like a plan and you don't have it organized, it shows, right? It just kind of falls apart, and you're just trying to, as I did, jimmy a solution and try to keep it together for just that one more day and hoping that it'll be okay in the end, and you're hanging on to that hope and almost like wishing that it's going to be over. Like I can't, I remember feeling like I just have to get through a
And you guys, I was going to say while we wait for Madeleine here, I was going to say this program would be terrific for teachers just because of the consistency of it. I mean, as you heard the last time, Madeleine has developed this program because of what was going on in her life. I mean, she literally one day put Madeleine.
Yes, when we got cut off.
I lost you on your end. So I was going to say, how could the steps be modified for someone who has a disabled child, or could the steps be modified for someone that isn't quite ready for a routine yet, even though they need one? How do the steps work?
Mike, that's a great question, Wynn. I'm so happy that you asked me that. It would depend upon the disability of the child and their level of functioning. So I did create my program. I did have it vetted by a person in the special needs field, a social worker in the special needs field with over 30 years experience. So it is vetted. But what I would say is that the child needs to be able to understand and perform two-step commands and understand cause and effect for the program to really be successful. So what I generally say is that I work with typically developing or higher functioning children between preschool and preteen ages. Well, more accurately, I should say I work with the mothers of those children. So my program is for the mothers to implement at home. So when you say that they are disabled, they do need to be able to follow instructions. So when the children are younger, the parent is guiding their behaviors and guiding their actions. So There are some mothers who, as part of their children's routines, because their children are younger, are helping their children dress, right? They're helping them maybe even brush their teeth, helping them, all along the task throughout their routines. They're helping them bathe, but they're still instilling the idea of the routine in their child. Right? So the routine still needs to be in place so that as the child gets older, they understand that there is a sequence of events that happen. So that when the mother takes herself out of the equation, because now the child is dressing on their own and brushing their teeth on their own and bathing themselves, everything doesn't just fall apart. So if you are fortunate enough to know to begin routine training early, then your children are very young and do need your assistance. And if your children are older, if your child is 9 and 10 and 11 years old, well, they're doing that on their own. They're dressing themselves. They're brushing their teeth on their own. They're bathing. Then it's more guidance verbally. So when the children are younger, there's more involvement physically. And as the children are older, there's more guidance verbally. So they're giving verbal guidance.
And let's say that the parents work, but they also have a nanny. Could you teach this to the caregivers as well, or does it have to be to the parents only?
No, absolutely not. It is the caregiver's involvement as well. So the parent typically takes the program, but I speak to the parent as to how to bring the nanny in, because there are routines that need to be handled when a child comes home from school. And if the parent is not at home, if mom or dad works and the nanny is the person, then the nanny is the one that is executing the management, I should say, of the routine. So the nanny is involved. And I will say to you that sometimes there are families where the children live between two homes, right? Perhaps the parents are divorced, so they're separated. So that needs to be taken into consideration also. And in our very first conversation, in our first communication, I get the lay of the land. And so I understand, is it a peaceful co-parenting situation? Is it a co-parenting situation at all? Is it, so that I can kind of guide them. But the main idea behind this is that I take the position that the person who is going through the program is the main caregiver, is the primary caregiver, and that they will execute the program. They're the ones who's going to take control of the program. And the program is very easy. The steps are very easy. All the strategies, tips, and tricks that I give out are meant to be as easy as possible. I understand how busy moms are. I know that there's a lot of plates that are being juggled, a lot of balls in the air. And it's very simple to manage as long as you know what the steps are and that you're doing them in order, which is why I call it a formula. And I'll get to that in a few minutes. But what I do want to say is that I take the position that the person I'm speaking to is the primary caregiver. They kind of take control of the situation. And when the other caregivers see, when their partners or their ex-partners see the outcome, see how much nicer it is for the children, how much nicer the home is, how much more relaxed it is, how much happier mom is, how much happier the children are, how much more successful they are in their day-to-day tasks, then typically the other person gets on board. So even if they're kind of hesitant at the beginning, if there's a situation where maybe mom is very interested in, having things change at home, but dad is hesitant, let's say, I just bring the mom on board and just say, listen, this is going to be easy for you to execute. You do not need a partner to execute this. You can do this on your own. You can change a lot on your own. And when other people see that change, they're going to get on board, especially since they don't need to do anything. So it's very easy for one person to do it on their own. But if you do have somebody who is, taking care of your kids, say, after school, they do need to know what the afternoon routines are and manage those.
So what you're saying is even if it's a co-parenting household and they go to dads over the weekend and moms during the week, the dads can still get involved with this program.
Right. Well, the ideal situation is that the dad is very interested in relieving and reducing the stress at home and is very interested in the program and gets on board right away. That's always the ideal situation. If there are two people involved with the children, that both parties are interested. That's not always the case. So if only one person is interested, that's already going to make a difference for the 5 days, let's say, that the child lives with that one parent. It's going to make a difference. And you can only have control over what you can do. So if you cannot bring the other person on board, if it's an antagonistic situation, then one person can do what they can to benefit their child during the time that they have, control over that. And hopefully when the other person sees the change in the child, the change in their success, how much more relaxed and how much less stress the child has in their life and how the grades are getting better and, all of these benefits that come from living in a stress-free home, hopefully that person will get on board. But if you do have two parents that are, co-parenting peacefully, absolutely both parents can do it.
So absolutely both parents could do it. And what is step number one? Go through the 5 steps for us while we have you so people could get a taste of the program.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm happy to give you a blueprint, like an infographic for this as well, so that you can give that to your listeners as well. So the most important thing to know is that this is a system. I started off earlier saying that each of the parts need to be integrated. That's what a system is, when parts work together to make a whole. So a lot of the problems I felt with myself and with other moms that I work with is that they're looking at each area individually when I feel that they really need to be looked at holistically, and the approach needs to be that it's a system that is complete and integrated. So the first part, and I always start with routines, and the reason that I start with routines is very strategic. So I start with routines because when a family has routines that are really nailed down, that are optimized and efficient, it immediately reduces the stress in the home dramatically. So I always like to ask moms, if you had routines that were seamless, that your children knew what to do and when, that they, got to school on time with everything they needed with grace and ease, that they knew when to do their homework, when to pack it up, that they understood the bedtime routine so that your evenings were relaxed and peaceful and calm. How much stress do you believe that would reduce in your home? And, moms always say like 50, 70%. It's such a disproportionate amount of time, amount of stress that is aggravating the family because they just don't have nailed down routines. So I handle that immediately because I want the family to feel that immediate relief, to feel hopeful, to understand that they can live a life, have a family and live in a home where they're not living in chaos. So we nail down the routine first. It's very important that they are nailed down, that they're detailed, that they're efficient, that they're optimized. That is very important. So that's the first part of the formula is routines. Then I have what I call my secret sauce. I call them rhythms. And what rhythms are the solutions to the problems that arise when there needs to be a team effort made between the parent and the child. So in those instances where the child needs the parent to do something, or the parent needs the child to do something where a team effort is necessary to have a successful outcome, parents don't really think about that. So there are issues and problems and challenges that come up every day where somebody drops the ball. And because there isn't a process that is identified for those are hiccups and speed bumps that derail your day. So I'll just give you an example. Let's say there is a note from school that needs to be signed to have a child go on a field trip.
Yeah.
So two parties need to be involved in that. The child needs to bring a note home, and the mom needs to sign the note and maybe bring in some money, right? Maybe there needs to be a check for a school trip, and that note needs to get back to school. So both the child and the parent need each other for that to work. But there typically is not a process for something like that at home, right? It's kind of like, the kid will give the mom a note, and sometimes the kid gives the note in the car ride home, or when they get home from school, or they leave it on mom's desk or in the kitchen, and mom gets to it today, or mom gets to it tomorrow, or something. So if a home had, perfect routine, and that child is ready to go to school in the morning and, ready to walk out the door, with grace and ease, and all of a sudden turns around and says to mom, I'm going on that school trip today, and you never signed my permission slip. Well, all of a sudden now mom's like, what permission slip? And the child's like, I gave it to you last week. Now the mom's looking for it, and maybe that takes 10 minutes. Is it on a bedstand? Is it in the kitchen? Is it in the office? Is it in the living room? Did I leave it in the car? Or maybe the child never even took it out of the book bag. We don't know where that permission slip is. And if it takes 10 minutes to find that, and now mom's finally reading it and scans the permission slip, and it says, we need $7 for the trip, and it needs to be, in a check, or it needs to be exact change. Well, that's going to take a few minutes now because, and it needs to be in an envelope always, right? It needs to be in an envelope. And whoever has an envelope just sitting around. So now mom has to either
I certainly don't. I certainly don't have the envelope sitting around. I wish I did.
You probably don't have a $5 bill and two singles, or now you have to pull out your checkbook. These things take time. So even if you have those routines nailed down and you were ready to walk out the house on time to get to school, all of a sudden that problem, right, that takes 10 minutes or 15 minutes to solve. So now either you get to school late, or your child doesn't go on the field trip because you don't have the check, or you don't have the money. So there's all these types of things that, come up where there are processes that need to be in place when you need your child's involvement. You need your child to give you a permission slip or give you notes from school at a certain time every day in a certain way, and the child needs to know that mom is going to do her part and sign the permission slip so that the kid isn't stressed out. Because it's not just that the kid won't go on their field trip or the child will be late to school. It's also that the child feels stressed. It's not just that mom's feeling stressed out now looking for that permission slip. Now the child is like, I'm not going to go on my trip, but if mom doesn't find that slip, we're always scrambling in the morning. That's stress. So rhythms, I call it rhythms because rhythms is what really gets you into the rhythm of your day. It's figuring out the solution to those speed bumps and hiccups that, threaten to derail you. And they seem like little things, like, it's just a permission slip. But those little things, and of course that's just an example, they can derail you. They can stress you out. And now you're late to school, and again, you're 20 minutes late, and maybe the bus left already for that field trip. So the second part is rhythms. And what I say is that routines make your life easy. but rhythms make them effortless. They tie up all those loose ends. The third part of the system is rules. And I know that all moms know on some level that you need rules, but I attack rules with a three-pronged approach, the rules trifecta, I call it. So rules for the home, rules for the child, and rules for mom. So a lot of moms don't know that they need rules, but they do, because when they make rules for themselves, they're, giving themselves help with consistency and accountability. So they make a commitment to themselves. And that's what really helps them become the mom that they really want to be, is identifying rules that are, tied to the idea of the mom that they want to be, to that vision. And also, the rules for the home and for the children and for themselves, we tie them into values and principles so that the rules take on a bigger meaning, right? They take on a bigger meaning. They're easier to be consistent with when rules for the home are, for example, tied to a principle, let's say respect. So instead of, not talking back, like you don't want your children to talk back to you, you can tie that to, say, a value, a principle of respect. So if respect is an important value that you want to instill in your children and you want to be having conversations around respect a lot, then you can speak about how talking back is disrespectful, and because we honor respect as value in our home, we don't talk back in our home. Just kind of weaving those principles and values into your conversations at home so that they're growing up really knowing what the values of the home are. So that's important, and that's step 3. So we have routines, rhythms, and rules. And then we talk about designing a reward system, a system of rewards and consequences for your home that is really going to motivate the children to do what they're supposed to be doing and even more. You want to set a bar, set an expectation for them to be doing more than, the bare minimum, more than they can be doing, really reaching their potential in their behavior. And when I talk about that it's a system and integrating all the parts of the system, I'm talking about a reward system that includes the routines and the rhythms and the rules as part of the reward. So their successful completion of those other parts is what they're being rewarded for. Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly. That makes sense completely. And as I said, I wish I had my parents learn your program in my classroom of preschoolers, because that would have been a lot calmer to my day, because then they would know the rewards. And God, I had a kid, her mom came in. She cried she literally cried when mom tried to leave. And it's like, not happening. So what do you do when the kid is so, I won't call it clingy, but I guess I will. What do you do when the preschooler is so clingy to the parents that they don't want to go towards the other kids or towards the other teachers?
Did you say clinging?
I said clingy, yes.
Clingy, okay. I will speak to that in a moment. I just wanted to get to the 5th part of the system because I think it's so important, and I want to make sure that your listeners understand that there is a 5th part, so that if they're trying to do this and implement this on their own, that they have all the parts so that they can be successful. But the 5th part is holding a family meeting where you get your children's involvement, where you get your kids on board to want to follow the system. And you need to do that in a very strategic way where you're kind of encouraging them to build the system. So you're encouraging them by asking them questions. What rules, what rhythms, what rewards, what routines, like how should all of these play out so that it's really a system that they're creating. And that's very important because you can have the world's best routines and the world's best rules, but if your children aren't on board, if they're not interested in following the program, it's not going to be successful. So I just wanted to wrap that portion up and just say that the 5 parts of the formula to the stress-free family system are routines, rhythms, rules, rewards, and the last part I call it revolution because it's when you revolutionize your home and bring them on board. And as I mentioned earlier, I will give you a link to a downloadable infographic for the blueprint of the stress-free family system if your listeners would like to download that. And of course, they're always welcome to contact me and have a discovery call also. But let's get back to your question of your wondering what my suggestion would be for a child that is clinging to the parent. That was your question earlier. So I'm assuming that you're talking about a situation like in a preschool situation, where the children, it's like their first exposure going to school, and it's their first time maybe being away from mom. And I would say that school anxiety is a big problem, and not just in preschool. So when you're talking about clinginess, I'm imagining those first few days of school, but after children take a break, going back to kindergarten, going back to first grade or second grade, or even starting a new school, that can bring around a lot of anxiety to children. I would say that a lot of that can be handled at home with conversations between the mom and the child about what to expect in school, managing their expectations. What will a school day look like? What will it be like to be meeting new children? And calm their anxiety. A lot of times children have anxiety over the unknown. But talking to them about what the day will look like, including you'll have a chance for a snack if you need to go to the bathroom. This is how that's going to be handled. If you have a question, your teacher will be there for you. Setting up some play dates over the summer so that there's continuity with socialization is a great thing to be doing. And having conversations. If the mom knows that the child has some anxiety around that, maybe meeting with the teacher before school starts or just a few minutes in the hallway before they're being dropped off would be very helpful. But I would say that if it's possible, it kind of needs to be quick once you get to the door. I think it's kind of like ripping off that Band-Aid.
Yeah.
If mom stays a long time kind of hovering around and nervous and anxious for the child, the kid picks up on that. The child will say mom doesn't think I can do it. Maybe I can't do it. I see mom peeking, through the window. She's there because maybe this is not safe for me. If mom, even if, it's nerve-wracking for mom and it's her first time letting her child, spend a half a day or a whole day away from her. And I understand that. I have 3 kids of my own, and I get what it's like to say goodbye to your kid and, handing your child off to somebody else. It's not easy. But if mom can keep it together at drop-off and just put a big smile on her face and really encourage the child and be like, you're going to have a great day. I'm so excited for you, and big smile and project that confidence that their child can do it. And then it's bye-bye, and just on her heels, turn around and walk away. It's okay to fall apart, down the hall, right? Or outside the school.
Yeah.
But letting the child know that you have all that confidence in them is really important. And then trusting that the teacher has that experience of bridging that. It's really the home school bridge, right? If you trust that your teacher is going to be able to then, you're passing the baton, right? Grab that baton and bring that child in, right, to the classroom and include them and have them feel comfortable, then that helps the mom also feel confident.
Yeah, exactly.
So I would say having conversations at home with the child, really managing the expectation of what's going to happen over the summer during those, especially those few weeks before school starts, having those conversations about what to expect, keeping up with some play dates and that socialization aspect, sharing things like that, talking about shared experiences, working on building attention endurance so that the child can, depending on if the preschool is like, some preschools are like half a day, some preschools are full day, so that your child can manage that if there's a nap in between or not a nap in between. And also having a conversation with the teacher, an honest conversation. My child is having a lot of anxiety around this. Would you come outside and speak to, Mary for a few minutes before the start of the day, and having, that experience. But
no, I think
overall, ripping that Band-Aid off and just giving your child.
Someone's got to do it. And Madeleine, I thank you so much for coming back on, and you gave great advice, and I wanted to go into more detail about how to implement this program, and I apologize for the coughing attack, you guys, but I wanted to go into more details on what your secret is, because you sound like you have a very calm home, but we'll schedule that offline. And I appreciate you guys listening, and if you have any questions for me or Madeleine, don't hesitate to reach out. And, of course, I'll have Madeleine's information in the show notes. And I think this program should be implemented all across the U.S., in all homes, and around the world. So, Madeleine,
thank you.
What would be a closing advice for parents?
The closing advice I would say is that, I don't know if this is advice, but maybe it's more inspirational, is that I know that when I lived in chaos and I was scrambling and overwhelmed and exhausted and way in over my head, I did not feel hopeful. I felt that I was not able to get it together, that I was going to have to live like that until my kids grew up and out of the home, and I felt ineffective as a mother, incompetent as a mother. I had a lot of negative thoughts in my brain that were cluttering up my brain, which was, of course, adding to the overwhelm and exhaustion and draining me. And I would just say that learning how to have a stress-free home and to give that gift to yourself and to your children is learnable. It is doable. It is manageable. It's not scary and difficult and all of the things that maybe hold parents back from having the home that they really want. So I would just say that if they want to do that, to take the steps necessary to have it. Like, don't resign yourself to despair and to overwhelm and exhaustion, because it is possible and it is so much easier. Oh, the one other thing I would say is maybe that I resisted the idea of putting systems in my home because it seemed like it was a lot of work. And I would just say that it's so much easier with a system. It's kind of counterintuitive, but putting a system in your home sounds like a lot of work and it's boring and complicated, but it's actually super easy, and you get to have a lot of fun when your home is running easily and effortlessly and your children are behaving well. There's lots of opportunities for fun. So maybe
Yes.
that would be my last piece of advice.
Yes, you do. And Madeleine, I thank you so much for sharing your advice, and I thank you guys so much for listening. Thanks to you guys.
Thank you, Lynn. Bye-bye.